Hi, I am giving a speech on composting with worms. Who doesn't love worms? So that is the question. Who doesn't love worms? But seriously, raise your hand if you don't love worms, because I'd love to have a conversation with you about the benefits that worms do. And by the end of this video, I hope that you can have an appreciation for worms and what they can do for an organic garden. I am in my greenhouse right now, and it's hot. It's in July, but now that we got the worm introduction out of the way, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Nicole Powell. I'm a student at Columbia Gorge Community College, a current Wasco County Master Gardener, although I will never be a true master. I have roughly 20 years of gardening experience and reference most of my composting credits to a book by David Squire, The Compost Specialist. I've done all forms of these composting, so it is a great source. But since we live in arid Oregon, some of them don't work. Some of them you have to do extra watering and tarps, and but for like if you're composting and using it for your house plants or for like a small garden bed, worm composting would be good for you. But if you wanted a more larger scale, you could do bigger like compost heap piles, but this is also in this book. It's a great source. And then also I source a lot of my information from the OSU extension publications, and so we can go ahead and get along here on how to build a compost bin. That is the first step in creating a worm bin, and then you have to pick out your container. I got this guy at Buy Mart, and they are the perfect size for the at-home gardener. If you want like a small worm bin, or if you're not doing large scale, like for my whole greenhouse I have big worm bins, but I'm also an organic gardener. I don't like using pesticides. So for your bin, you can get your container. That's how we start. Get your container, and then you are going to want to drill holes small enough, or put a screen over where so worms can't get out and other things can't get in. So your screen is going to want to be, I'll give you an example. Your screen is going to want to be kind of like this. I don't know if you can see that, but that is like a really good mesh. And you can just cut out holes and then cover them with this screen, or you can drill holes small enough. So, and you're going to want to do those on the top, 3, on the side, 3, probably 1 on this side, 1 on this side, and 3 on the other side. Okay. So now that we have the container picked and we have the holes in it and you have your screens on, you are going to want to get your base. So your base is going to be like peat moss or sawdust, untreated, that doesn't have chemicals in it, because the chemicals will, the wood treatment and the chemicals will kill your worms, and you don't want to do that. And I'm pretty sure you don't want those chemicals in your food that you eat if you're fertilizing your vegetables and stuff. So so if you have firewood, so if you're chopping up firewood, or that's where I get mine from, is we get firewood that's untreated, and sometimes we have to saw it to make it smaller, and then we keep those shavings in like a storage container, like 5-gallon buckets, and then I use them whenever I want. And then also paper shredder. so you can recycle your paper in your house. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making layers like lasagna. So just think of it as you are making a really awesome, nice lasagna for your worms. And so we do our base, which is coffee grounds. There you can go and get coffee grounds from you can go and get coffee grounds from cafes, and I know Starbucks saves their grounds and gives them away just like in their little drive-through window thing. You can just ask them. And so here we go. We're gonna do our base, do some paper, and then this is gonna be pretend. So then we get some coffee grounds, and then we get some peat moss or pine shavings. I like pine shavings. Shake it in there, and then we get our vegetables. So I'm pulling these out of mine, so these are already decomposing a little bit. These are, I just needed stuff, but these, some of my lettuce were going to seed, and so I just lopped the tops off of those and then just throw it in there. And it's really beneficial to add citrus and anything high in acid into your worm bin. Plants love decomposing citrus, and if you're having a hard time breaking it down in your worm bin, you can put it in a plastic bag and stick it in a hot area for like a week or two, and it'll break down. And you can even try that out. Like if you take orange peels and chop them up and put them in a bag overnight, if you go back in the morning, they are going to be like a liquid almost. So that's a really cool trick. And then you're going to do your layers of your base, your paper, your raw vegan fruits and vegetables, potatoes, carrots, just anything really that's just vegan. And if you're ever questioning anything, you can just Google it. Yeah, until it's at a good level. I usually do like halfway. Sometimes I fill it up. Depends on how much waste I have in my house. But okay, and then we're moving on here for caring for your bin. So your bin is supposed to be odorless. There should be no odor. There shouldn't be too much moisture. You should be able to it should be moist, but not like soaking wet. There shouldn't be like moisture coming out of these holes. It should be moist, but not like soaking wet, because your worms will drown. And then if it's too dry, you might want to add a little bit of water. But in that, like if you're adding enough organic matter like that, that's not going to happen. In my greenhouse it gets really hot, so sometimes I have to add water. But and how I usually do this is I like load it up, and then I wait 3 months, and then I harvest. But some people do like a gradual thing, and then they stop, and then they move on. But I do it more for the fertilizer, not for like a recycling system for my house. So I have like 3 different bins that alternate, that I change off every 3 months. But I also have them in a hot house, like in a really warm, great climate for them. So now on to if you start getting mold or some like fungus growing on the top of it, you don't want that. So you can just take a little bit of baking soda and like sprinkle it on, and then do a layer of your dry. And you can also do that to remedy if it's too moist in there. You can just dump a whole bunch of sawdust on the top, let it sit for like a week, and all that sawdust will just like absorb, and then the worms will decompose. So that's how you do that. And then for harvesting and filtering, I do the strainer method. Just a regular strainer like this. It's like 3/16 of an inch holes. Or like a 1/4 inch holes, that should work too. And so what you would do is you would take your beautiful worm stuff. Let me see here if I can get some worms to show you straight out of my bin. Show you my babies. There we go. So, let me see here. Where's some of my babies? They've got to be in here. Lots of eggs I see. Oh, there we go. There's one red wiggler, and red wigglers are the best. You can just see how small they are. Oh, come on, wiggle for them. You are a red wiggler. There, he's living. There's another one. They're tiny, but once you get a good population, they can decompose things like really quickly, and that's what you want. So, and then this is about what the finished product will look like. It's nice, dark, deep soil, odorless. It's beautiful, and that is enough nutrients for a plant for like a whole year. So don't know if you need a closer look. Okay, so anyways, I put a tarp down, and then I take I dump out my compost bin on the side, and then I take handfuls at a time, put it in the strainer, I go, and then what's left in here is matter that has not all decomposed, your worms that you want to keep, and anything else that's left behind, like eggshells that haven't decomposed, and you can just throw that back into a new bin or your old bin. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay. I'm gonna put them back, send them back home, and then you can start your new bin while you're doing your old bin. Oops, I left one. I'll get him later. Okay, and after that, you take the tarp and put it in a really dry, sunny area. I usually like lay it out in my greenhouse so that everything that might have not gotten out of the soil can crawl out. Things can dry so that you don't have this fungus of a mess just waiting for you. Because if you close it up and it still has moisture, it'll get really gross. Now you dry it out and then put it in like gallon bags, and I usually pop them in my freezer in case there's any unwanted bugs or anything just in there that I would want to kill, because I do use them for my houseplants. So yeah, and I think that's it, and the conclusion is building your own worm bin is easiest in plastic container with appropriate ventilation. Add vegan food scraps, paper, sawdust, and coffee grounds. Makes a happy environment for your worms. Watch out for too much moisture and remedy with added sawdust or peat moss. Harvesting castings is easiest with a sifter and a tarp. Dry completely and store for use. Thank you for joining me.